We on. Exciting times at Cogdell Law Uncensored. Today I have Tommy with me. How's it going, Tommy?
What's up?
And of course, Cogdell, Cogdell himself. How's it going, Dan?
Good morning. It's going well.
Dan, 20 million views, 50K followers passed in just 2 months. How does it feel? We have your analytics pulled up here, but growing as fast as we have, as early as we have, has been exciting for us. But you know, how has it landed on you?
It's a little surreal. I mean, again, if somebody would have told me 2 months ago, A, I'd be on TikTok, B, I'd have 50,000 followers, C, one post would get cumulative of 20 million views, I'd say put the crack pipe down, dude, back away, stop it. But here we are. And it's rewarding, it's refreshing, it's overwhelming, it's bizarre, it's all of those things.
It's been such a fun experience for us too, and obviously even now, if you look on the screen, you get comments coming through. Every second there's a follow, every second there's a like, every second there's a comment. I mean, no matter what, within a minute, 2 minutes, there's so much different levels of engagement. It is on our side managing the accounts super stimulating because I have the notifications off. I don't know if you have it off, but it doesn't buzz my phone. But when I go within the app, there's always something new. It's always, so when you pull up the app, it'll show you 99 plus. That's what it'll say in terms of notifications because it doesn't get over 3 digits. But no matter what, every time I check it, it's over 99 plus. So it's always it's cool that you've built a platform to create this dialogue. Obviously, not all of it's positive or negative, but did you ever think that this was something that you would have influence on or become a micro influencer?
Not in a million years. I mean, I'd never even thought about getting on TikTok. Like I told you guys at the beginning when you were flirting with me about the idea of getting on TikTok or getting on social media, I said, look, I don't dance. I don't watch cat videos. I don't want anything to do with TikTok. And y'all slowly explained to me, because I'm the village idiot on these things, the not only the brand reach that you can build, but the communication you can establish, the recognition that's there, and frankly the conversations that's there. So it's overwhelming to me. What Mike, who owns Method 360, we were just talking, and he said, did you think you'd ever get on TikTok? And I said, absolutely not. He said, well, think about it this way. You're probably that guy 150 years ago that always rode a horse. And you were never going to ride anything but a horse, and then they invent this automobile, and you thought, I'm never going to get in that contraption. I'm never going to get in that contraption. And a couple of years later, you saw the car spinning by your horse, and you thought, well, maybe I'll get a car. So it's a really good analogy.
It is. And digging kind of further into the analytics, as you see here, your audience is 82% male, 17% female, and 1% other. So you got some aliens there.
Yeah.
But the breakdown is interesting. I mean, across the board, it's pretty even. You have 18 to 24, 25 to 34, at closer to 32%. So the age group, me and Tommy's age is definitely the most, but it's pretty even split across. And then 57% is actually in the United States. So you have a global audience, Canada, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, which is, to a post that we'll get to.
How do you make that omelet?
How do you make that omelet? But I mean, it's fascinating. We're always looking into the numbers, always looking at the analytics. People look forward to your posts now. They look forward to the next episode. A lot of comments that come in, people are saying first comment, being the first comment, like bragging that they were there first. I mean, you only really do that for pages that have influence. So it's a race to get to the posts. It's a race to see what you have to say. You'll make comments about Trump on one side, maybe Gavin Newsom or a Democratic governor on the other. You get both sides riled up. But what I appreciate is that you're just your honest self. You're genuine, and you don't care about the politics as much as you care about the fact at hand and what's going on, and actions and decision making, and you're not tied to just one thought. You're open to hearing new ideas. You're open to different dynamics, and I really appreciate that as a partner working with you, because you're obviously an expert in your field, and we're going to get later down the road kind of talk about more of your expertise and cross-examination. But I mean, it's been a great journey on our side too. I mean, we've had so much fun doing this. Tommy, do you have any, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the analytics, it's actually insane just seeing what we're able to accomplish in the past couple months. But honestly, seeing that 58% is from the U.S. and the remaining is all the other countries around the world.
All the places I've never been to. I get as far as Waxahachie, and that's about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you have a global fan base. Actually, what is it? 43% of your viewers are from outside the U.S., which is insane.
And I've got nothing but you guys to thank for this. I would not, not that we've won a gold medal or the Nobel Peace Prize or something. It's TikTok, for God's sakes. But I would have never been on it but for you guys. So I'll always owe that debt of gratitude to me, because let's talk more about my favorite subject, me. I've tried cases for 42 years, some really high-profile stuff. Branch Davidian and Enron and Paxton's impeachment, in this case and that case and the other. And when you try a case like that, there's some attention that comes to it, right? Mm-hmm. But it's literally your 15 minutes of fame, right? And which is fine. I didn't get into this to become famous or rich. I got into it to help people. But that having been said, that brief stardom flicks away quickly. I mean, there was a 5-part series about my role in the Branch Davidian case on Paramount that, just dissipated. It was great to see. Yeah. It was cool to be a part of. But I never got any recognition, like going through an airport or going to the grocery store, about that. Nobody ever said anything. Now, I walk through Hobby or I walk through Love, and they'll come up, they'll squint their eyes, and they'll look at me. Are you that lawyer? And my response is, objection vague. What lawyer? There's a lot. And then they hear my voice. Oh my God, it's you! It's you! and I get recognition and some sort of familiarity or I don't know, kudos. It cracks me up. I mean, it's fun, but it's a new world that we live in. Well, it's a different world than it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Completely different.
What's interesting to me, and I'm curious about your opinion on this, whenever you're doing a high-profile case, and you said that the times that you do get your 5 minute of fame is usually during those high-profile cases, depending on what the case is and the verdict, that could be bad. Like, it could be a lot of like hate mail or it could be a lot of negativity. I feel like in this situation, in the current circumstance, like with your show and building up your show, people are actually getting to know you and not the case that you're in. So people like even John yesterday was like, hey, like I'm learning stuff about you and I've been your friend for years. Right. So what is your opinion on that?
It's much more positive. I mean, for example, Paxton, was one of the lawyers representing Ken Paxton's impeachment, whatever. My point is, he's a divisive personality, right? A lot of people like him, a lot of people hate him. And with that, if you represent somebody that divisive, a lot of people are going to like you, a lot of people are going to hate you. So, you always get this notion, well, you should try my case because it's high profile. Well, high profile ain't always good for the lawyer. I mean, generally it is, but oftentimes I've been told I'm never going to hire you because you represented X, Y, or Z. So there's always a plus and a minus to it in high profile matters. But to your point, Tommy, not one person has come up to me and said, I hate your TikTok. You look stupid. Now we have commenters on there. God bless them. I love the hate mail. But the attention or the recognition or the acknowledgement or however we want to phrase it is overwhelmingly positive. I mean, I see people in the tunnel system in Houston. We have an underground tunnel. Everybody goes to lunch because it's so friggin' hot, and I'll be stopped 5-6 times at lunch going, I love your shit, dude. Keep doing it. Or, would you stop it? All I get is my son texting me your TikTok stuff. It's interrupting my day, but it's overwhelmingly positive, which is nice, right? Yeah. And again, all jokes aside, what we do as criminal defense lawyers is a rough gig. It's a hard job. Our clients can be very difficult. The juries can be very difficult. The judges, the prosecutors. I mean, we live in kind of a legal sewer. I mean, there's a bunch of shit floating around us 24/7, 365.
Even the public perception is
100%. And sooner or later, you start to smell like shit and you start to feel like shit because you're living in a sewer. And this helps me breathe. And it helps. There's an affirmation or a reaffirmation. Hanging out with you guys is frankly, it's energizing. And it's not just because, you're pulling my pud and telling me how great I am. That's not the case at all. But it's life affirming and professionally affirming. It's awesome.
I appreciate that. And there's a term for this. It's called glazing. Are you familiar with this? This is what they
glazing.
Say. Glazing. It's when you if you're hyping someone up too much, they'll be like, "Oh, you're glazing him." And we glaze Dan often here, and I'm happily a glazer because
glazing. I learn something new every day. Glazing.
Well, you got aura, so we have to glaze you. These are
I got an aura ring.
But on a serious note, like you mentioned, I mean, for us, it's like, we consume a lot of this social media stuff. Like we're also we're always doing some form of research, we call it, to see what's trending and what's popular and why. And when you're consuming it as much as we do, you see that there's so much just like brain rot, and there's nothing really of substance that exists. And there's a generation, the generation that you're in, and other generations, above us that
boomer.
That they've
not sooner, not
boomer, not sooner.
The amount of times I've seen that on the comment section is just like,
I mean, but the reality is that generation of boomers, they're not necessarily comfortable putting themselves out there in a space like social media,
for sure,
but there's so much wisdom and experience and stories that you guys have that I think that I'm fascinated in genuinely, that I feel like there's an audience for. And that was the original reason I came out to you, is just because I was like, Dan, I could listen to you talk for hours, and I'm consuming content all the time. And if this existed out there, I'm almost positive that there'll be an audience. And lo and behold, everything's relative. 50K followers to somebody who has 1 million or 2 million doesn't seem like much, but the fact that we got to 50 on TikTok within 60, 70 days is impressive. And we don't really talk about it often, but we have almost 10,000 plus on Instagram.
We're going to hit 10K on Instagram this week. We're probably going to hit 1K on YouTube this week.
And and we started May 1st. So it hasn't even been 90 days. It hasn't even been a full year. The trajectories that we're on, all feel really positive, and the audience is global. There's an appetite overseas for somebody like you who tells the stories that you do and the way that you tell them. What I appreciate more than anything, Dan, is that you're just a good person, and you're an honest person, and you're humble, even though you've accomplished so many things. And there's so many people online who haven't accomplished anything, but they'll tell you everything about everything. So it's refreshing to work with somebody who you can learn from, but also is still very curious and is asking questions and is open. So the glazing session will end soon, but I do appreciate it, and I feel like so does the audience. So the significant amount of people really. It's refreshing, your content online.
I don't want to get all wind chimes and Joshua Tree and crystals on us, but I'm not a religious person. I'd like to think I'm a little spiritual, becoming more spiritual. But all this stuff sort of lines up if you look at it from kind of a macro perspective and then drill down. And I love the commenters that call me an alcoholic and put the bottle down, and I haven't had a drink in 3 years. I needed a drink. I needed to stop, and I did. But it cracks me up. I would never work for that red-faced alcoholic. Well, you're not getting offered a job, so we're cool. But I stopped drinking. I've lost 85 pounds, and I've just re-energized myself. But to your point, and again, fun fact for those at home. I've got the Serenity Prayer tattooed on my left sleeve, and on my right forearm I have Dylan Thomas's "Do not go gently" into the first 3 lines of that. All that to say, at 68, soon to be 69, my life has been re-energized, right? In a lot of levels, quitting alcohol, getting in shape, frankly, experiencing what I went through with the folks at Epic and how gracious they've been, you guys, the podcast, all of it is such an upward swing in my life. And, you know, it's apropos to say nothing more or nothing less than I had to get out of my comfort zone to do all of that shit. Because unless you change your shit's never going to change. And I guess to the older geezers at home, get out there, put yourself out there. It's a scary world. It's different. You know, am I subject to ridicule on some of this stuff? Rightly so. But I'm so much more comfortable in my own skin than I was even 2 or 3 years ago, and all of it is a natural progression. So it's been awesome. Yeah, no, that's great. And you know, to reiterate that, so you know, do you have like if you had just one really strong piece of advice? I want to ask you two versions of this. So, what's your advice for people who are kind of entering their manhood? So, you know, kind of getting into their adult stages of life, 21, 22, and approaching, you know, what they're going to consider adulthood. Like, what's your advice to people who, you know, are entering their professional lives and, you know, their lives beyond school and when they find independence to find success in some sort of, you know, happiness? Let me answer it in a way that sounds less preachy, meaning what would I tell myself at 22 years old, right? If my 68-year-old self could talk to my 22-year-old self, I would say, slow the fuck down, savor the moment, look around, quit thinking you know everything because you don't know anything, right? I at 22, 23, 24, I knew everything about everybody. I was so cocksure of myself and what I was going to achieve and how I needed to get there. And to some extent, the proverb or the adage about, you know, be careful of what you ask for because you might get it has come true. But I lived my life with the way a racehorse has blinders on. I never looked around. I never tried to associate myself with people of a different color or people with different thoughts. I was, you know, a frat boy until I was, you know, 55 years old, more or less. Still am to some extent. But keep your eyes open. Explore other paths that you never thought of. Be patient. And most of all, just do the right thing. It's not that hard. And again, to jump back, Aaron, to the, you know, I don't believe, and you know, people in AA will hate me for saying this, but I don't think alcoholism is the disease that most people paint it to be a disease. Cancer is a disease, right? There's all people drink too much, in my view. And again, that's not particularly apropos to your question, not because they have a disease, but, well, they do have a disease. They're assholes, right? And that's why you drink too much. That's why I drank to excess, is because you have a hole in your soul that you're trying to fill up, and you can't fill that hole without booze. So, but more responsive to look around, take care of yourself, be healthy, get in a regular workout routine. Get the fuck away from your iPhone, from your iPad, from your computer. Take a walk, lift a weight, hit a ball, ride a motorcycle. Get the fuck out of your mom's basement, you know. There's so many people that are addicted to, and I know this is contrarian advice coming from a TikTok where you're going to be looking at your phone, but there's so much more to life than is in that goddamn thing that Steve Jobs invented. That's bars. Watch the Dan clip and then get off your phone immediately after. Like and follow and then get off. And then one more thing here, and you kind of touched on it before, but I do want to kind of run it back, maybe kind of a little more poignant. But what about people who are older and who feel like their life might be over, who spend most of their time kind of reflecting on what it coulda, shoulda? Do you have any advice? Because you just mentioned,
how much has changed just in the last 2 years, and you're approaching 70, and you found kind of this new
69.
69. There you go.
The position and the age.
The position and the age. So, what's your advice to people who do kind of hold maybe a little bit more regret, or aren't happy with their current state and are in a later stage of life? Do you have any?
Yeah, I was there, right? At 65 when I quit, I thought, this is it. And let me go there for just a second. I'm a big off-road motorcycle fan, motocross, supercross, desert racing, Baja 1000. That's my shit. I love that stuff. And there's a hero of mine named Roger DeCoster. Roger's a 5-time world champion. Had his poster on the wall of my house in Houston there he is. There's the man. Roger's a 5-time world champion. He is Michael Jordan. He's Phil Jackson. He's Kobe Bryant. He is literally the man. I mean, that's his nickname, is the man. He's had the greatest impact on the sport of off-road motorcycle racing than anybody. It's not even close. He's just lovely. The old adage about you never want to meet your heroes is because they'll disappoint you is complete bullshit. He is the coolest guy I have ever met. I just love the dude. But the point being, through Roger, I met this kid who was, the badass at the time named Ryan Dungey. And Ryan had won, 4 or 5 Supercross, motocross championship. Great kid. But after he retired, he was on our suite at the Supercross in Houston. There's Ryan. And I'd talked to him, but never spent any time with him. And, these kids train at an incredibly high level. I mean, you can talk about football, you can talk about baseball, but what these kids do is at least as challenging and certainly a lot riskier than any stick and ball sport will ever be. Their fitness, their diet, all that is up there with any NFL player. Point being, I was looking at Ryan, and I mean this in the most heterosexual way possible. I looked into his eyes, and the white of his eyes, just whiter than my shirt. It was just like, Jesus Christ. And I thought to myself, this fucker has never had a Twinkie, much less the drink of the devil, Red Bull and vodka like I consumed. And I walked away thinking how amazing he's that disciplined. So this was, I don't know, Aaron, 2 or 3 weeks later, I went out and I had my usual 3 or 4 Red Bull and Tito's. And I woke up the next morning and my eyes looked like, they're just busted red vessels. And I walked past the mirror and I said, this old fat guy. And I thought, who's that guy in my back? Oh shit, that's me. And I looked into my eyes and I thought to myself, Ryan Dungey's eyes have never looked like this. I got to stop this. And again, I mean that in the most heterosexual way possible. But that was the final tipping point in terms of my alcohol use. I stopped. I went into AA and stopped. But to point to your question, what do you say to another old guy who feels like, life has passed him by or he's missed out on the opportunities? Get off your ass and change it, right? That's what you do. You read great books. Go read Atomic Habits. Go read the 5 a.m. Club. Go read a plethora. What's her name that just wrote Let Them? There's great books out there, but unless you feed your mind with positive stuff, you're going to end up going to Magnolia in Waco with your overweight wife and looking at products bought from China with the label scraped off of them. Change your shit. It's not going to change by itself.
No, that's great. And I think a lot of people need to hear that because people do feel stuck in their ways. But what do they say? You change your habits, you change your future, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just a matter of changing your habits and taking control. And you're kind of a living example, although you've seen success at different stages of your life and you've lived, 3, 4, 5 different lives, it doesn't stop you from continuing to strive to be a better version of yourself, even at the age of 68, which I find to be very inspirational, Dan. I think it's really cool, man. Like I said, I'm going to be labeled as Glazer #1 on the show, but I'll happily take that title when it comes to you.
So it's safe to say that another man's eyes changed your future.
Jesus Christ, here we go. Yeah, I guess that makes me a chicken hawk. I don't know.
all the women, but it took just one man's eyes.
Yeah.
All the beautiful women that he's looked into.
We're going to get a whole new group of demographics following us pretty soon.
That male percentage is shooting up a couple more percentages. It's going from 80 to 100. I do want to...
we get a lot more others.
No, he's right. The others is going from 1% to 20%. That's for sure. I do want to kind of take a quick look on the subject of your profiles. And, there's speculation about, is TikTok going to get banned? What's going to happen? I guess we'll see, right? I mean, we looked into the analytics and we looked into the overall revenue, the impact it does to the GDP. I think $26 billion in 2023 and over 250,000 jobs. Jobs like what me and Tommy do, are built behind apps like TikTok. So are they going to just pull the plug? I guess we'll see. I don't see it happening, but for the time being, let's take a quick look at some of the comments to your videos here. Okay, these are some of the funny ones that I pulled up. Horse Latitude says here, if you are constantly read as a beat, I'm not working for you.
Cool. I'm not offering you a job. That's great.
Kevin, what's wrong with paternity leave? I like this one because Kevin's not the only one who's brought up the paternity leave. I had 12 weeks and paid and enjoyed every minute with our baby. A lot of dads in the chat upset about the paternity leave comment.
Look, first off, ladies, it's a joke, right? All these things are a joke. There's some truth, like in most jokes. There's some truth in relation to a joke. But if he and his mangina hadn't swollen up, he might have understood that I said, don't bring it up in the first job interview. I didn't say it would. We've actually had people call the office and talk to my staff going, that's a violation of the law. If he doesn't let you take a paternity leave, you can sue him. It's like, yeah, I'm a lawyer. I know that. It was kind of a joke, and it was meant if you brought it up at the first job interview.
Well, how does your staff react to that when they get those calls? Because we work with you in a different capacity, and our experience is nothing but positive. So it's like, I'd laugh at these comments, but what does your staff think of stuff like that?
They laugh their ass off. Look, I just like any other guy, I have a temper. I can be difficult, but I'm generally pretty easy to get along with. I'm not demanding. I don't yell. I don't scream unless they really deserve it, which is rare. I've never had an employee quit in 42 years of doing this because, at least to my knowledge, I've never had one quit because they felt that I acted improperly towards them. I love my staff. I couldn't get by without my staff. So they know who I am versus how people interpret, a punchline on a TikTok video.
Of course. It's the comment section is just hilarious because they like
so he just wants people to exploit.
Yeah, I pulled that one up for that reason.
I overpay. If anything, I overpay. Do I work 60, 70, 80 hours a week? You're goddamn right I do. Does my staff? No. My secretaries, my support staff, they work 40 hours a week and they go home. Teaser Pony, my associate, and other folks that work for me as lawyers, do they work longer hours? Yeah, because they want to, because they need to, and they realize that that's the only way you can get the job done. But, it's great.
I like this because it's sandwiching. What a man only hires rational, hardworking people, and this needs to be law for being hired. So on top of all the negative, there are people who, find your masculinity and your just level of intensity as a, positive overall trait, which
I actually
is fun.
had, Aaron, to your point, I had a really good lawyer, and I won't name him, who came up to me again in the tunnel system, or I walked out to him and whatever. And he said, you stole those. You stole those from us. I'm like, what are you talking about? You stole those fights. That's like our scorecard. How did you know? So if I'm an asshole, I'm not a singular asshole. I'm surrounded by others.
Are you burning that suit after all the comments?
I'll pull these comments up. So what about a poorly fitted blue check suit and number 6 on your list, checkered suit. So taking shots at your suits.
So first off, ladies, it's a sport coat. It's not a suit. And I know that may be skinning that a little too thinly for you, but I love that sport coat. I've got 25 other ones, and I'm not going to quit wearing them. Would that be too much in a suit? Of course it would. Would I wear that to a federal courtroom? I would not. Would I wear that out to dinner or taking my wife out or going somewhere? I would. So, to each his own.
Well, we know some lawyers that would wear that in a suit with some sandals on a plane.
The squirrel man. The profile picture is a squirrel.
Let's finish this up. Okay, and this one is, again, more on the positive side. And obviously, Dan, working with Epic, working with Muslims, you have a couple different pieces of content that pertains to your experience with Muslims. And these ones, I appreciated, right? Sonny says, I've never had a bad experience with a Muslim neighbor. They have always been courteous and polite. And that's got over 5,000 likes, which is crazy. And then the one under, which is a Free Palestine banner, it seems like, but it says, as a Muslim, these comments have me bawling, decades of hate and racism, and to have people appreciate you is just really touching. Alhamdulillah, which is, praise be to God, essentially was what that means. But this is not the only comment that's like this. There's hundreds of thousands, actually, of comments that are coming from different Muslims and Muslim accounts, and even people who aren't Muslim themselves, like Sonny, who just is talking about having a Muslim neighbor. But whether it's a Muslim or it's a individual who has a relationship with the people of the faith who understand who they are, there's a lot of appreciation, Dan, for you just being human ultimately, and humanizing a group of people who have been peppered with misinformation and kind of bullied in the mainstream media for their faith, let alone the type of people they actually are and what they actually represent. So what are your thoughts on this, like, Muslim love?
I it's just organic from my perspective. I grew up in the west side of Houston. We had 1,000 kids, 1,100 kids in my graduating class. We had 2 or 3 blacks, 4 or 5 Hispanics, Muslims. Are you kidding me? I didn't even know what that was. And certainly my experience as I aged and had a few different life experiences, I just didn't really give a lot of thought to whether somebody was a Muslim or wasn't. It just wasn't a big deal. 9/11 happened, and did I jump on the bandwagon of hating all those people? And for a second, yeah. But I wasn't so naive that I didn't understand that, there are bad eggs in every basket, right? And when you just do the math, Muslims are 1/3 of the world's population, and if they were all bad, we wouldn't be sitting here and having this conversation. But as a client base, Epic was my first exposure to people of the Muslim faith, and they have been wonderful. They've been the most appreciative, intelligent, warm, responsible. They've been awesome. Some of the best clients I've ever had. Hell, they pay their bills, they do what I ask them to do, and they appreciate my work. That's an unusual triangle in my racket, right? Those 3, 1 or 2 of those things you might get, you don't get 3. As I told the fellow that's organizing the construction, hell, I'll buy a lot there. I love these people, but I'm glad. And again, I didn't assume responsibility with respect to Epic to lift up my Muslim brethren. I thought I could do some good, but it's wonderful to me that indirectly in a microscopic way, I'm helping to sort of tear down the stigma against them.
You have a recent clip talking about how Sharia law, the perception of Sharia law is nonsense in the Western world, and that clip got reposted probably over 1,000 times, and on a lot of people saying thank you for shedding some light in this and sort of talking about this. So I think it's great.
Yeah, it's one of those things to my fellow Muslims, as far as a message I have, is that, like Dan explained, 9/11, if people are busy in their own lives, in their own worlds, with their work, with their family, with their own kind of situations, and they don't have time to, indulge in news, or they haven't had experiences with other people of other faiths, like it's easy to get kind of tricked and to be, a little bit brainwashed in terms of your perception of what somebody might be like. So to my Muslims, it's like, continue to be patient with the people that you live with and live around, because eventually when they get to know who you are, they're going to come around and they're going to not cast those types of, negative perceptions on top of you. And I think on the other side, Dan, I think most Muslims too, they're more comfortable being represented by another Muslim, because then they feel like they understand who they are. But the reality is, another piece of advice I have is, how about find the best lawyer and work with the best lawyer, and allow yourself to meet other people and allow yourself to go through the experience of the unknown, and to let people get to know who you are, because then it does change their perception. And, Dan is, a fan favorite for especially the Muslims in North Dallas, because of the epic case, and being kind of a champion for the people, because again, they're not doing anything wrong. They're just looking for more of a community to be involved with, and more opportunity to be around, whether it's like a mosque or like a halal grocery store, or a school that, is more based in that religion. You're somebody that we feel like super excited about, and the more Muslims that get to know you, the more DMs we get about potential, help and representation. So I think that's always really cool.
Let me sort of end this segment this way, and you know the story, Aaron, but it was so eye-opening to me. I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, we had a couple of fellas from DC that were very bright, that are very active in the Muslim community, whose goal it is to sort of break down the stereotypes and the hate against Muslims. And one is Yale, one is Princeton. Very bright guys. And they met, and if you call central casting and ask them to send you a couple of Muslims, they would send these two guys. They look as Muslim as I look white, right? And I know they're white Muslim anyway, but they met at a hookah bar, and they got in a disagreement over who was the greater president, Hamilton or Jefferson, right? And they get so far in the weeds on why Hamilton was better than Jefferson and vice versa. And I'm like, shit, I had no idea about any of that stuff. So anyway, the point of it is, 12 of us go to lunch in Plano, and there was a table. We needed, 12. And there was one table that had 12 people, and there were 6 folks sitting there. And the waitress walked up and said, "Would you mind moving to a smaller table so we could seat these 12 people?" And this woman, who looked like she had just left the trailer park, and Honey Boo Boo was her daughter, and they probably haven't missed a single episode of Dance Fever or whatever the hell they watch, they looked up in disgust at those people, meaning the Muslims. Oh no, they were just so riled up over the idea that they would be asked to move to another table to accommodate them Muslims over there. And so we waited. But my point is, I wanted to go off on them like a bottle rocket. I thought that was so offensive. It was so obvious what they did, and it didn't rile either one of these guys up a whit, but my point being, they've experienced that hate, that vile, that bile their whole lives. And it's amazing to me when you look at it from a bigger perspective, how more Muslims haven't been self-radicalized and haven't reached that threshold where, you get called a whore, or you get called a murderer, or you get called whatever often enough, you damn sure might just turn into one, right? And I was so impressed at their unflappability and their professionalism, because I wanted to go up and punch Honey Boo Boo right in the kisser, right? And they're just like, nah, don't worry about it, dude, we got it. And it's amazing to me how y'all have tolerated that your whole life, and I'm not saying that's right or that's wrong, but it sure is. It's admirable as hell that you have lived your life without reacting in a really negative way.
No, that's powerful, and obviously, heavily appreciated just being kind of a champion, like I said, just being honest, being real about the community and the people who live amongst that community, and how it's a spectrum. Like, you're gonna get all types of people. Not every Muslim's a good person, but they're all definitely not bad.
Sure.
So cool. So I do want to transition into our next segment, which is going to pertain to a couple lists that you might have prepared for us, Dan. So I'll let you kind of take it from here, but Dan's got some intriguing, entertaining, hopefully engaging topics that he wants to cover. So I'll let you take it.
Yes. So because the little pops on the 5 things or the 5 reasons or whatever, people seem to love lists. So I'll try to give the people what they want. And frankly, none of these are somebody accused me on one of them of using AI. It's like, no, I don't use AI. I'm vaguely familiar with it, but these are just from the heart, for better, for worse. So the first one is the 5 pet peeves of lawyers, at least from my perspective. The first is lying to your lawyer. Why people lie to their lawyer, particularly their criminal defense lawyer, is beyond me. I've been doing this for 42 years. I don't care if you're Oswald and you shot Kennedy and you sodomized Jack Ruby afterwards. It doesn't matter to me, but I get lied to all the time. Thing number 2 is comparing your case to another case in another place at another time. And I'm sure PI lawyers get this all the time when their lawyer comes to them with, well, that lady from McDonald's, she got $7 million for a hot cup of coffee. Well, first off, her burns were each case is different. Your opposition is different. Your venue is different. Your judge is different. Your defense, your model is different, whatever. Thing number 3 is texting your lawyer instead of emailing your lawyer. Do you text your doctor in the middle of surgery? It drives me nuts that my clients text me. Send me an email. I have staff that can respond to your email. I don't have staff that can respond to your text, and you're not interrupting me. Thing number 4, asking for updates before holidays. Every client that every lawyer has, for reasons a little oblique to me, hey man, what's going on in my case? This happens before Thanksgiving. This happens before Christmas. This happens before New Year's. Your case isn't on a holiday track. It doesn't matter. Just because we're at Christmas, I get it. You want closure, but stop it. The resolution of your case or the progress of your case has nothing to do with holidays. And number 5, most importantly, is clients that want you to tell them what they want to hear, as opposed to clients that tell you what they need to hear. I get hired all the time as the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th lawyer for a given individual. That's never a good thing, because that means that client has gone through at least 3 or 4 or 5 lawyers who at least one of them has probably told them, hey, dude, this is what's going to happen in your case, or this is what you need to do. So lying to your lawyer, comparing your case to another case, texting instead of emailing, asking for updates before holidays, and wanting to hear what you want to hear as opposed to what you need to hear.
It's bars.
Solid list.
So
I feel like I would be guilty of a couple of those on that list.
And some of that is human nature, and I get it, but it's things that I literally see or experience every single day, to the point where in my initial client conversation with a potential now, I go to them. When somebody darkens my door, I give them this speech. Listen, there's a thing called the attorney-client privilege. And what that privilege means is everything I learn as a result of having a conversation with you or as a result of doing work for you is confidential. I can't share it with anyone else. unless A, you authorize me to do that, and B, it's in your best interest. It's important for a number of reasons. The most important of which, at least in this context, is some people, when they go to see a lawyer, they think, oh my God, if I tell my lawyer the truth, they're going to think I'm guilty, or they're going to think I'm a bad person, or they're going to think I'm gay, or they're going to think I'm straight, or they're going to think I'm tall. Or none of that matters. I could care less if my clients are guilty or not. It doesn't matter to me at all. But what matters to me is giving them the best advice I can. I can only give them that best advice if they are straight with me and I'm straight with them. So I say, just in this way, in this cadence, in this fashion, we live in Texas. I'll use a hallowed phrase here: don't bullshit me and I won't bullshit you. Because what happens is a lawyer relies upon that, particularly at the initial phase, to try to begin a negotiation with the opposition, or to begin to sort of frame the contours of the case. And if the lawyer misrepresents the facts or a position to his opposition, he's got no credibility with that opposition. So what I'm trying to say in an inarticulate, windy way is they're just fucking themselves over, right? And they do it all the time. And I just don't understand why people want to lie to their lawyer. I don't care if you're Oswald and you shot Kennedy. Don't care. What I care is giving you the best advice I can, only in representation. The only way I can do that is if you tell me the truth. So don't bullshit me.
So always tell the truth to your lawyer. But to bring up something that we talked about on a previous episode, you did mention that as a lawyer, you learned early on to never ask your client if he's guilty or not. So how does that tie into?
It's nuanced. I don't ask him, what they did or what they didn't do. Usually at the first meeting, I will phrase it in terms of context. What's the evidence going to show? What are people going to say? What are the cops going to claim? And sometimes we get to the ultimate issue, but a lot of times, Tommy, people don't know, and this sounds childish and stupid, but it's true. People don't know if they're guilty of a crime or not. I mean, for example, the definition of a conspiracy is to agree with another person to perform an illegal act, and that an overt act occurs in furtherance of that conspiracy. Okay? Well, your boss comes to you and says, "Hey, Tommy, sign this right here," and you sign that right there, and you find out later on what you've done is signed a forged document or an illegal document or something that creates legal exposure. What you don't really know at that point, what you've signed is an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. My point being, sometimes the law is nuanced. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray, and they might not understand that there are defenses to what they've done. There are exceptions to the law that the government is seeking to enforce against them. My point being, sometimes they literally don't know. Now, if you sodomized a 4-year-old, you're pretty sure that that's a crime, right? but it's not always that black and white. And the higher you go on the food chain of criminal representation, sometimes the more nuanced and difficult the fact pattern is. Sometimes the more difficult and nuanced the defenses are. It takes some time before I can really sit down with my client and say, dude, these aren't good facts, and here's why we should explore resolution without a trial. Or on the other hand, these are really great facts, and we should try the case. But again, to that point, my client knows what my client knows, but he doesn't know what the evidence is out there against him, right? He doesn't know what he doesn't know. There could be a dozen people signed up with the government that have already told them, yeah, he did X, Y, and Z, and he told me it was a crime and all that. But again, I'm kind of babbling, but you don't always know whether you've committed a crime or not.
So it's safe to say that if you're contacting a lawyer, tell the lawyer exactly what happened, but don't tell them whether or not you're guilty or not, because you don't know.
I would say it this way: answer the lawyer's questions truthfully.
Okay.
And leave it at that. There are some questions I may not ask you on the first meeting or the second meeting or the 50th meeting, but answer whatever questions your lawyer is asking of you truthfully. right? That's the message I'm trying to convey.
That's super powerful. I think a lot of people don't understand this. They don't know this because most people, they're not really in trouble until they get in trouble. And so then when they get in trouble, it's a new experience for them. So they don't know how to manage that experience, right?
Well, and more often than not, particularly in the white collar arena where I typically practice, it's not the crime, it's the cover up. It's the destroying of the records. It's the statements they made afterwards. It's the hiding or failing to report stuff. It's not usually just the act. It's what happens after the act that can create serious problems for them.
And the adage of innocent until proven guilty, do you feel like that holds ground, or is when somebody accused nowadays with social media and how things go, is it already presumed guilt?
It's
because
case
of that?
specific. Certainly, pretrial publicity is 99 times out of 100 a bad thing, right? When you did not hear, that P. Diddy presumably innocent. And innocent until proven guilty, and the government has not yet proven the case beyond a reasonable doubt, but the allegations are, whatever, right? We're just not built that way. So the more attention the case has, the harder it is to presume that person guilty. I think some cases it's easier to presume a person guilty, but on the whole, I think it's bullshit. I don't think when you get to a courtroom, that jury panel again walks in and says, well, I wonder what that falsely accused person is here for. That's just not how we're wired.
Yeah, and we spoke on that before. I'm also curious, just in a human element, just because the psychology behind being a criminal defense attorney, does understanding if somebody is guilty, like your instinct, like telling you, like, oh, this person's definitely guilty, does that persuade how you act? Obviously, you're a professional, so probably no, but does that have any kind of impact?
I think the answer to that question is it depends. What moves me or sways me or affects me more than anything else is whether or not I can relate to that person and whether or not I think they have a decent core. And again, the adage in my racket is don't judge an entire life by a single action. And there's certainly some truth to that. But I'm at the stage now where after 42 years of doing this, I don't have to take every case that walks in the door. I don't want to take every case that walks in the door. I want to help the people that of course, can afford my services, but I also want to help people that I think deserve help. And I've represented, like Kerry Birmingham, the fellow that literally murdered his wife in his driveway. It was caught on video. We can get to that, I guess. But people ask me, how can you do that? What a horrible thing he did. And I said, yeah, it was a horrible thing that he did. But under the law, what he did was based upon a sudden passion arising from an adequate cause. His wife was saying horrible things about him over and over and over and taunting him and belittling him and demeaning him when he had a gun in his hand, when he was highly intoxicated. Did she deserve to get murdered? Of course not. Did he deserve to get life? Of course not. I mean, again, it's a nuanced situation. I liked him. I'm not so sure I would have approved of some of the things that he did both in the driveway and in his bedroom. That's not my purpose here, but I thought, well, there's a guy who, if he's not adequately represented, is going to get life, right? And I thought, well, this is kind of in my wheelhouse. Excuse me, what he did was a terrible thing, but I can do him some good, and he's got redeemable things about him, so he doesn't need to spend the rest of his life in prison.
Last thing I want to touch here is something that we spoke on our podcast the other day, Tommy and I, with our guest, Rhetoric, Dan. We had the CIO of Method 360 talk about the human element in working with AI and leadership, and he spoke on rhetoric and the importance of rhetoric in terms of in the capacity of being a strong leader. Do you have what's your kind of perspective on rhetoric and how important that is in a courtroom?
It's everything. It's the alpha and the omega, and what you say and how you say it. I mean, how you say it is just as important as what you say, right? I mean, let's just do this. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you know, the defendant is presumed to be innocent unless and until the state proves his case beyond a reasonable doubt. He's entitled to remain silent, and if he does remain silent, you can't use that against him. Can everybody follow that law? Right? You hear that in every courtroom every day, and it's in one ear and out the other ear. It's just like, what the fuck ever. If it's said differently, ladies and gentlemen, I know you know how important it is, even in the most difficult cases, to presume a person to be innocent. I mean, literally, you have to look at my client right there and tell me, and know it in your soul, that you can absolutely presume him to be innocent and to require the state to prove the allegations beyond a reasonable doubt. That's not easy to do, but that's what I'm asking you to do in this case. And that's not, I hope so, I can, I think so, maybe. That is a, yes, I can, Mr. Cogdell, or no, Your dude is charged with sex assault of a child or whatever. There's no way I can prove that. The difference in just, it's the same language.
Wow.
But how it's
powerful.
Delivered is night and day.
That was
right?
powerful.
So that's the money shot.
Wow. And just to add to this, because this is fascinating, to tie back to the Sharia law thing, you identified immediately that Sharia law was being weaponized by its rhetoric. How you said that it's everything, it's important, the rhetoric. How does somebody I guess get good at it? How do you? I know that it's a bunch of practice. It takes time, but if rhetoric is everything, what do you recommend to people to get good at it? How would you get good at something like that?
The Beatles came to the Ed Sullivan Show February 9th of 1964. I was, whatever I was, 8 years old. And they were the new band, and everybody was just blown away at how good this brand new band was. Oh my God, look at how good they are, and they're brand new. What people don't understand is between 1960 and February 64, when they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show, the Beatles played 360 shows in Hamburg, right? Almost every other day they're playing, and the number actually may be higher than that, but they're just playing over and over and over. The same reason Michael Jordan got great. He spent 5 hours a day with his trainer in addition to what he was doing with the Bulls. Kobe Bryant got to the court at 5:30 in the morning and left at 7 at night. In high school, right? You get good by repeating and doing it over and over and over again. I'm a good lawyer. I think one of the reasons I'm a good lawyer is I've tried over 100 DWIs. You know why? Because the only thing a judge was offering back then was probation. The only thing the state would offer you to as an inducement to plead guilty was probation. The only thing a judge was going to give you, your client, if they were found guilty, most circumstances, was probation. So I tried those cases over and over and over, and I learned what I could do. I learned what I couldn't do. I learned what worked. But, like Tony Robbins and 1,000 other people say, repetition is the mother of skill. You have to do it over. And that little shtick I did with the presumption of innocence, if you would have asked me to do that early in my career, there's no way I could have done that, right? It's just learning what works and what doesn't.
I think when we spoke with Greg yesterday, he recommended this book by Jay Heinrichs. It's Aristotle's Guide to Self-Persuasion, How Ancient Rhetoric Can Help You Change Your Life. Do you have any books in this topic that you have top of mind that you could recommend?
Not so much on self-persuasion. I listen to positive life instruction, motivation, discipline, character. We can get into my Audible book list, but in addition to maintaining or achieving sobriety, whatever, one of the biggest changes in my mental space is I don't listen to music when I'm working out. I listen to, for lack of a better description, motivation and self-help books, and it's changed my life.
Rhetoric or work ethic or compassion or professionalism. What are 3 books that you would recommend somebody right now to just better their game?
Atomic Habits is great. Anything by Admiral McCraven. Bill McCraven famously organized the raid on Osama bin Laden. He is one of the all-time studs of all time. That's kind of duplicitous. He's amazing, and his after he organized the raid on Osama bin Laden, he became chairman of the UT system, the University of Texas. Might not have been chairman, whatever he was El Jefe there. But he had a speech called "Make Your Bed." It was a commencement speech, and McCraven's message was this to the then graduates of that UT class was, the first thing you should do every single morning when you get up after you brush your teeth and shower is make your bed. And everybody's like, what's the big deal about that? Well, first off, no matter how your day goes, when you come home at the end of that day, you will have a bed that's made and that you'll be anxious to get into. But it's just little tidbits like that. He's wonderful. I love that dude. In terms of, I listen to a lot of Tony Robbins stuff. Grant Cardone, I think, is a friggin' genius. He gets out there a little politically for my taste, but that's not the point. Anything by Cardone, anything by Tony Robbins. Mel Robbins, who I referenced earlier, has a great book called Let Them. And basically her message is, you can't change what other people say or do. And you're doing denigration to yourself by letting what other people do affect you, and just stop it. Just let it go. I mean, I don't claim to be a great connoisseur of all things positive.
Now we have a couple other kind of fiery dynamic lists that Dan has prepared. So I'll swing it over to the big guy. What are we working with?
Yeah, so I was thinking on the way up here, because I get asked all the time, why did you become a criminal defense lawyer, or what are good reasons to become a criminal lawyer, or I want to become so I got it both ways. The first is 5 reasons you should actually consider becoming a criminal defense lawyer. The first is if you enjoy being the underdog, because let's face it, as a criminal defense lawyer, you are the underdog. The facts are oftentimes against you, judges are oftentimes against you, jury perception is oftentimes against you, so you got to kind of have a little fighter in you. The second is if you actually want to try cases. The vast majority of lawyers never try cases. I mean, there's a head of a very prominent law firm in Houston whose section head, their trial division chief, their chief of litigation, whatever, has never tried a case, right? If you work for Jones Day or some of these monster law firms, as a young associate, you'll be working 60, 70, 80 hours a week. You're reviewing depositions, you're doing discovery. It can take you years before you ever walk into a courtroom. Criminal cases, I was in my first trial like 2 weeks after I started working for Mr. Haynes. So if you actually want to try cases, it's as a criminal defense lawyer. Third is if you believe and trust in the jury system. I think that's a necessary ingredient. But I do trust in the jury system. Do I think they get it right all the time? Of course not. Do I think they get it right a whole lot more than they get it wrong? I do. I mean, look at the P. Diddy result. If you would have asked me going into that, do I think he's going to be convicted? I'd have said, yeah, he's done. But that jury, he was well represented by really competent lawyers. They found him guilty on the things he probably was guilty of, and they acquitted him on the stuff he probably was not guilty of. So I think they get it right. Number 4, if you can handle stress well. You have got to have that ability. And last but not least, if you believe that being good at what you do is more important than being liked and being held in high regard for what you do. If you're very good at what you do, if you're me, I'm respected some, I'm disliked more, but I don't care about that. I care about being good at what I do. So that's that. 5 reasons not to become a criminal lawyer. I hear this all the time. I want to become a criminal lawyer because I like to argue. No, a criminal defense lawyer, I'm not good because I'm good at arguing. An argument, more or less, is, no, I didn't. Yes, you did. No, that's an argument. I don't argue. I persuade. There's a difference between being good at arguing. I mean, any husband and wife could become a lawyer if that's the standard. It's being good at persuasion. Number 2, I get this a lot too. Oh man, I hate cops. I want to become a criminal defense lawyer. No. My job is not to hate cops, destroy cops, eviscerate cops. My job is to put what they did in context and explain it or attack it, but not to hate them personally. Number 3, I want to go to a cocktail party and have everybody come up to me and hear my great stories. No, you're not going to be popular as a criminal defense lawyer. Number 4, I want an easy job, something with work-life balance. No. There is no work-life balance in what I do. Stop it. Number 5, I want to make a lot of money, so I want to be a criminal defense lawyer. Oh, my God. Get a life. Do I make a good living? Yeah, of course. I make a good living, and I work. If you want to make money, actual real money, plane riding, plane owning, boat owning, 3rd, 4th house money, it ain't going to be as a criminal defense lawyer. You can be a PI lawyer, you can be a big-time merger and acquisition lawyer, you can be a patent lawyer. We're at the bottom of the barrel in terms of the pay scale of lawyers. So if your goal is to make a lot of money, go to a different house.
It's powerful stuff. You mentioned there that wanting to be liked and disliked. I guess I was naive to this. I didn't know that criminal defense lawyers are just naturally disliked by people. Like, people just don't like them, or what's the issue there?
People hate, and first off, a great friend of mine is Rusty Harden, and Rusty hates the phrase criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
Right? Because
it implies
that just means you're a criminal and a lawyer.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between being a criminal lawyer and being a criminal defense lawyer. But that distinction having been stated, in a lot of people's eyes, you're an advocate for criminals. Right? No, I'm an advocate for the Constitution. And everybody hates a criminal defense lawyer until they need one. Until it's their niece or their nephew or their wife or them. I don't want to hang out with you. You're a piece of shit. You represent criminal defense. You represent criminals. No, I represent people being charged or investigated for crimes, but that doesn't mean they're a piece of shit. That means the government has focused on them, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, but there's a difference between hanging out with criminals and being a representative of the Constitution.
So why is it even, this might be a stupid question, but why is it even labeled as criminal defense? Why couldn't it be like an innocence defense attorney, or like, is the labeling or the language play to the, perception?
I mean, it would be like trying to rebrand Coke at this point. I mean, that ship has sailed.
Yeah, that's fair. So Dan, you did want to kind of talk us through a little bit of like closing statements, right?
So
before we get there, I believe it was before closing statements, right? We were talking about
rhetoric before.
Yeah, rhetoric
and how important rhetoric is in what I do. And similarly to the presumption of innocence, a lot of defense lawyers will get up there and say, well, the government hadn't proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. You're a reasonable person. Surely you have doubt. They haven't proven it to you. They got to prove it to you. Thank you. They ain't done that. Okay? My approach is a little more nuanced, and it is some variation, inevitably, of this, at least in federal court. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the judge has instructed you that the definition of reasonable doubt is that kind of doubt that would cause a reasonable person to hesitate in the most important of their daily affairs. Let me say that again. The kind of doubt that would cause a reasonable person to hesitate to act in the most important of their daily affairs. So let's do it this way. Let's say that you were boarding a Southwest Airlines flight and you found out that Mr. Smith, who was the government's most important witness, that he was flying that plane. You got on and you thought, oh my God, that's that government witness, Mr. Smith. Do I really want to get on that plane? No, you would not want to get on that plane. Let's go another direction. If Mr. Smith was the attending physician of an emergency surgery that you had to go through, and you walked in and found out it was Dr. Smith that was going to be operating on you, would you hesitate to act? You damn well sure would. You know you would. I know you would. So it's not some mythical, ephemeral, silly standard. It is if you hesitate to act in the most important of your daily affairs. That's all it is a hesitation to act. And you know, and I know, that if Mr. Smith was even your veterinarian and you were taking your dachshund to get weaned, you would hesitate to have him hands on your dachshund. So I'm not asking you to say that my client is a wonderful person, that the government was evil, that the prosecutor's sloppy, that the FBI agent was sleazy. I'm not asking you to find any of those things. The only thing I'm asking you to do is follow the law, which says if you hesitate to act in the most important of your daily affairs, to return a verdict of not guilty. That's all I'm asking you to do. So please do that.
Awesome.
It's powerful, man. I mean, I could consume that type of content all day long, to be honest. And,
careful, man, you're glazing.
I know, but I mean, it's the truth. I just think I have like a general interest in, a talent acquisition professional for over 10 years. When someone's good at what they do, like I'm just attracted to that. And, we talk a lot amongst each other, off the camera about growing our page and growing the audience and our platform. And obviously we're not doing TikTok dances and all the other bullshit that, the algorithm sometimes promotes, but, we do kind of talk about more topical things. You kind of give your perspective, these lists, these dynamics, that do well in the algorithm. But I also think, you could teach people at scale, with the reach that we currently have. You can share your insights, your subject matter expertise in terms of being in a courtroom and being a lawyer for as long as you've been and as successful as you've been. So I want to kind of pivot to something a little bit more niche and kind of in the weeds of your skills and the dynamics that you bring to the table, so that we can maybe educate even people who are aspiring lawyers and people who are growing up and who are in school or early in their practice and early in their professional careers in law, right? So you shared with me, Dan, an advanced criminal law course that you gave, I believe, to the State Bar of Texas. Is that right?
Yeah. So the State Bar of Texas, which obviously is the governing body in the great state of Texas over lawyers, they have, CLE, continuing legal education, and the sort of pinnacle for that is the advanced course, whether it's in personal injury law or family law or what have you. It's the advanced course, and almost every year I get asked to speak on a topic, which we do unpaid, unrewarded, without a lot of pomp and circumstances to it, but it's to do exactly what you suggest, to help other lawyers better their craft. And as I said yesterday when I spoke at the advanced course, I'm always a little chagrined to speak at the advanced course because it's not just criminal defense lawyers. It's
prosecutors.
It's prosecutors and judges. And I always think to myself, why am I telling prosecutors and judges what I do and how I do it. Not that I'm Nick Saban, but not one time did Nick Saban hold a press conference before the game on that next Saturday and say, here is what I'm going to do. So you're educating the enemy to a specific instance, but that is what it is. And good prosecutors speak. I learn, I get to peek in their kimono or look under their tent or whatever you say as well. So it's a nice collegial professional experience. To me, I love cross-examination, and it's why I became a lawyer, right? I wanted to be a lawyer that got into the courtroom, and I knew that practicing criminal defense would get me into the courtroom. And so we can walk through it slide by slide or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I want to go through it slide by slide because, again, I find this stuff very fascinating and have an appetite to learn, even though I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm not going to, but it's still really, interesting stuff, especially cross-examination. I mean, that is what you see on, Law and Order and all the suits and all the, law shows that you see on TV, but it's a performative, written scripted version, not the real deal. And so I do want to see more. And before we jump in, I want to kind of get back to what you just said, Dan. So you don't get paid to do those things. So a lot of the perception is, there's a price tag working with the criminal defense attorney. They'll do anything for money, but this you're not doing for money. So you just do it for the love of the game, or what motivates you to give back like that?
Well, first off, I think all lawyers have a responsibility and a duty to the profession to help others, right? I can't talk. You'd think I could talk better after 42 years. But as I said at Mr. Haynes' funeral, if I'm tall, it's only because I stood on the shoulders of a 5'7" giant. I mean, the only reason, or a huge reason, not the only, but a huge reason, the largest reason that I'm good at what I do is because I learned from a master. There's absolutely no way I would be as good at what I do, however good or bad that is, without having learned from Mr. Haynes. And Mr. Haynes had, if I heard it once, I heard it 1,000 times. And the expression was this: make sure you leave the playground in a better condition than it was when you got there, right? And that was his way of saying, dude, it's our obligation to make shit better, not just use it and walk away. And I believe that. I truly believe that.
No, I love that.
That ties back into making your bed, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
No, I think it's important. I mean, I would be honored to be, even being a part, me and Tommy being a part of this. And if anything that we share here or prior lessons and learnings reaches someone who gets inspired and, follows this craft and later makes a huge impact, and we're somehow weirdly a part of that is pretty cool. So,
I will tell you guys that the applications to become an intern or a law clerk at my firm have absolutely skyrocketed after we began this podcast. I used to get 1 or 2 a year, right? I've gotten 50 in the past couple of months.
Not surprised. I mean, we get a lot of DMs of kind of aspiring students that are really curious, should I go to this school? Should I go to that school? Mr. Cogdell, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Which is pretty funny.
Should I really not apply to A&M?
Let me stop there. I love A&M. A&M is a great school. They have a wonderful law school. It's not good. It's great. It's like a top 20-ish school in the country, which is remarkable because they've only had it for 5 years. They're doing a kick-ass job. They're doing a great job. But I'm a UT guy. I'm going to stoke the rivalry. However, I wasn't serious about the Aggie. And there are a lot of butthurt Aggies out there. I mean, the dean, who I really like, he sent me an email saying, I can't believe you said, and he knew it was tongue-in-cheek. He said, I can't believe you said that about our law school. I agree with the first 4, but did you really have to? So I emailed him back. Come on, he could, no, I got it.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious to the dean.
The dean of the, and full disclosure, I said, hey, Dean, I love A&M. No bullshit. I didn't say bullshit because I'm writing to Dean. I said, I'm dead serious. If you want somebody to come teach trial ad, I'm all in. Consider this as an application. So I'll teach there. It's a great law school, but I got to give the Aggie shit because they deserve it. They got male cheerleaders. Get rid of the male cheerleaders.
It's always hook 'em over gig 'em on this side. It's always hook 'em. But man buns, do you love man buns too, or is that?
No, I do not love man. You know what the definition of an Aggie menage a trois is, right?
What is that?
To watch. Do the math.
Oh God, that's hilarious. No, I mean, it's powerful, man. Like that's the thing about it, the influencing space. And to go back to what we started this whole conversation today, today's episode was that, the power of influence, curated to, something of substance and of teaching, which your platform is shaping to be. Obviously you troll, obviously you have fun, you self-deprecate, you mess around. That's kind of part of just who you are. But overall it's kind of to teach and to teach at scale. Like how many people go to these CLEs?
Oh, there were probably 300-400.
300-400, which is a pretty decent size, but it's not 50,000, right? So, ultimately you're going to be reaching more of an audience here, whether it's tailored to, who wants to see this stuff or not. Eventually it's going to find that crowd. So kind of talk us through this, and I'll just go from slide to slide and, kind of on your, through your direction. So I'll let you kind of take it. So the first slide is here. Why did you become a lawyer?
Yeah.
Can you talk us through?
I became a lawyer because I wanted to try cases. I specifically became a lawyer because I wanted to try criminal defense cases and work for Mr. Haynes. But specifically as a criminal defense lawyer, it is cross-examination where you make your money, right? Because oftentimes the facts aren't on your side. You're not building a case so much as trying to destroy the state's case. So it is just that you make your money on cross-examination, and if you're not a good cross-examiner, you are not going to survive in the criminal defense world. No, so the most important tool, in my view, in the toolbox of a criminal defense lawyer is cross-examination.
Got it.
So it takes three things. As I referenced earlier, it takes experience, and we'll get. And I misstated the number, Tommy. It's 1,200 times that the Beatles played in Hamburg between 60 and 64. 1,200 times.
That makes more sense for every other day.
I misspoke. Yeah. Even me makes a mistake frequently, but it's experience, it's preparation, and it's execution. You got to be able to effectuate all three of those things.
Is it ever a case that you can over prepare, or is it?
No.
You can never over prepare.
No. Now, there are, look, and we'll get into this, but I have cross-examination A, cross-examination B, cross-examination C. Depending upon where the witness goes, I will have another outlet for me. There are some lawyers, like my friend Rusty Harden, who's Rusty's natural skill set, just God-given skill set, is outside the bell curve. I've never seen anything like it. Is he the very best cross-examiner I've ever seen? He's top 2 or 3. I think all of us have good days and bad days. But my point, Aaron, with him is he doesn't prepare. If he does, no one ever sees it. I mean, he has great assistants and associates that give him these 3-ring binders like that are highlighted, color-coded, cross-referenced. Just these wonderful outlines. And he might look at him doing a 2-day cross, and he might not. I mean, his instinct on where to go exceeds any normal human's ability to prepare, right? It's just guttural instinct. And the difference, I say, and I'm getting a little off topic, but Mr. Haynes, he would cross-examine a witness for 2 or 3 days, right? And he was looking to destroy the state's or the government's case in every little way he could. They were always just paper cuts, right? There was never any head that got cut off or any femoral artery that got severed, little bitty paper cuts. But by the end of a 2-day or 3-day or 4-day cross, they were bleeding out. Rusty's completely the same, yet exactly the opposite, meaning he will do a 2 or 3 or 4-day cross-examination, but instead of destroying the state's case, he's building the defense's case, right? And those are 2 different directions. Sometimes you can head fake one and go to the other, but it's like, oh my God, it's just the exact other side of the coin. Their skill sets were comparable, but Richard is destroying while Rusty is building. I'm more of a destroyer. And I like to think I'm a little chameleon-like, that I can change depending upon the course and the case and all that. Haynes never changed. He was always going to destroy. Dick DeGuerin who's a great lawyer, great prosecutor. Dick is always attacking the state, always lying cops, cheating cops, overcharging prosecutors. And it works, right? You can't argue with Dick's success rate. But it's not me. I can't do that hate the cops, destroy the cops, lying cops shit all the time. I'm not good at it. Dick is. So my point is, it's all those things, experience, preparation, execution. I don't think a normal lawyer can ever over-prepare. I think we can get too tired and get lost in the weeds of our cross and not listening to what happened, but I don't think you can over-prepare. It's like a surgeon over-preparing for surgery. How do you do that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you feel like being the destroyer like that? I mean, you gain a lot of enemies doing that approach, right? Or
I have gained a lot of enemies. I have 3 ex-wives. I have plenty of enemies. You've got to use that destroy sort of mentality sparingly. And if you try to destroy every single witness, you're just an asshole.
Exactly.
Right? You destroy the ones that need killing. You don't destroy. You might not even touch the ones that don't hurt your case or don't hurt your case that much. I believe, and again, it's just my personality, I believe I've got to make some concessions, right? I acknowledge my weaknesses. I acknowledge the strength of the state's case on this, that, or the other thing, right? But I think that's a positive. I'm not a good liar. I'm not. Right? And I think whether I'm right or wrong, I think if I'm lying or I'm insincere, a jury's going to smell that. They may not cognitively be aware of that, but it's like, why is that guy getting red in the face? Why is he stumbling when he asks the question? Why is he shuffling his papers? Why is he looking down? And I think juries are masters at understanding the essence of something without perhaps even cognitively appreciating, what they are recognizing internally, or if you will. So I make fun of myself all the time because I think you need to, because that's part of who I am. If I came out and told the whole world, I'm the greatest lawyer that ever took a shit, you're so lucky to, what is that? I have strengths. I have weaknesses. Everybody, everything does. So I think sometimes it's important to realize this witness was very credible. I probably believed them too. But there are other witnesses that weren't so credible. And you've got to take the government's case as a whole, not as a single piece. So let's look at it as a whole. Yes, let's give Mr. Smith his accolades about being truthful, but look at Agent so-and-so, and look at Officer B, and look at Witness C. You add them all up, you ain't getting on that Southwest Airlines, or whatever the adage would be.
Yeah, so I mean, doesn't it help you with your credibility if you're not always like picking somebody apart?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But again, guys like Dick never acknowledge a weakness, never acknowledge the strength and do it well. But I'm not Dick, and he ain't me.
It's almost like Kobe, like you said, that Mamba mentality is just to attack, be on the offense constantly, and win by pure force. We'll get to Kobe. So we'll talk about experience.
And again, it's Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule. And I misspoke earlier. The Beatles performed 1,200 times between 1960 and 1964. That's almost every day. Jordan, 5 hours a day with his trainer. That's in addition to the Bulls. Kobe, 5:30 and 7 p.m. in high school. And people got me all kinds of shit. You don't really work 60 hours a week or 80 hours a week. And, your wife's probably screwing the pool boy and all that stuff. First off, we have a pool woman, but that's another story. But the point is, I do have to work that hard because I'm not a quick study, right? I'm not. I had a smoking hot 2.6 from the University of Texas. I wasn't a Rhodes Scholar. It took me a minute. I had a hell of a good time, but my windy point here is I have to spend the time because it takes me the time. Because if I want to appear and be natural and confident, I have to know it cold. And a jury can smell it when I walk in the room if I'm not prepared. I don't like that feeling.
That's awesome.
So there's a guy named Irving Younger, and these rules came out, or these commandments came out probably 50 years ago, and they are as true today as they were 50 years ago. The 10 Commandments: be brief, use plain words, use only leading questions. In other words, you don't ask a witness, what time was it? You ask a witness, it was 10:01, wasn't it? Right? There's a difference. Be prepared, as we just talked to. Listen, if there is a failing in most lawyers that I see on cross-examination, they are more focused about listening or uttering their next question than they are listening to the answer. They'll look at their next question, and sometimes a gem floats right by them that they don't hear because they're not paying attention. They're focused on their next question. They're not focused on the answer. And of course, a answer can absolutely pivot where you go completely, but they're not experienced, they're afraid, they're not prepared, so they're just sticking with their outline and not listening. Don't quarrel with the witness. Again, I like to argue. It's not about arguing. It's about persuading. Avoid repetition. I disagree with that one a little bit in the year of our Lord 2025 with iPhones and all of that, because I think people's capacity for recall is less now than it's ever been. I think you have to repeat because people don't hear it the first time. Disallow witness explanation. We'll get to that. Limit questioning essentially means don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. And the final is save or summation. The highlighted ones are the ones that I see disavowed the most.
As in, like, people just screw that up.
Yeah, they screw it up.
The avoid repetitions too, like you said, even when you did the example a few minutes ago of the closing statement, you repeated yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember it felt even more powerful the second time
Right.
you said it. So I think that would be an example of repetition, right?
But it's, like you said, delivering that message, because people kind of need to hear something twice or three times now because of how, overstimulated and, unable people are to really retain anything now with the age of social media and
it's
and
worse
phones.
than that, respectfully. You can say anything you want. You can tell a person they're an absolute asshole if you say, with all due respect, before you say that. That's the law. Yeah. But respectfully, it's worse than that, because I think now more than ever, people make up their mind immediately, and it's bias confirmation or confirmation bias. They come in, they hear an opening statement, or they come to a conclusion, and they just selectively hear what they want to hear that buttresses their already made up mind. And in cross-examination, it's hard to get them past that confirmation bias by asking a single question, right? And I'm such a cheap shot artist. If I get a really good answer and I'm on a roll, I'll pause after it. If, for example, the witness says, upon reflection, the lighting, it really wasn't that good. So and I'll pause and I'll say, and we'll get to this, the pause, and I'll say, wait, say that again, which is completely objectionable, right? Because objection repetition or objection repetitive, but the theater of it, to go to your earlier point, almost every time a prosecutor's caught flat-footed and go, shit, I don't want to, shit, and they'll say it again. So I've got a golden answer twice because I'll pause and get them to stop the room. Say that again. It's a wonderful.
That's actually brilliant. That's crazy. I love a graphic, of maybe Dan, your own, I know this is Irvin Younger's, but if you had like Dan's commands or Dan's Elite 8, tools for cross-examination, and the graphic on the screen like that, that page does would kill for a clip. Cool. Going into format.
Yeah. So format, this is just sort of the order that I think lawyers should pursue. And you always want to get just about every witness, no matter if they kill you or not, they have something favorable to say. So my point here is, if there's anything favorable, get that out first, right? Because A, it's safe. You can create your sea legs on cross-examination, and B, why do you want to impeach them first and then get the good stuff out? It's contradictory. And in any cross-examination, you're probably 30 or 40% of it's going to be uncertain, meaning you don't know what the answer is going to be. So this is kind of an exaggerated version of primacy and recency, right? You take your risk in the middle of the cross-examination, so at least you start favorable and you end favorable. In criminal cases, as we've discussed, we don't have depositions, we don't have requests for admissions, we don't have interrogatories. Our discovery is virtually non-existent in the formal sense. So despite the adage that you should never ask a question you don't know the answer to, in the criminal cases, there's a lot of questions you're not going to go to the answer to. My point is there, put the uncertain stuff in the middle. The kill shots at the end, the ones that absolutely you think you'll have the witness on the wet end of the spear on that, put them at the end, and most importantly, know when to walk the fuck away. If you've made your primary point, even if it comes up at the very beginning, and you've got a lot of less important shit that you think you need to, walk the fuck away when you're winning. If you get a high, and similarly, sometimes if you're getting killed, you just shouldn't keep poking that bear over and over. That brown bear is going to kill you. Walk away from the brown bear. So know when to walk away.
So I know this is a format for cross-examining, but I'm reading this and I'm thinking, shit, man, this is a format I could use when I have arguments with my girl, because I definitely struggle with the last piece of knowing when to walk away.
Well, Aaron, you know as well as I do, there's only one man that's ever won an argument with a woman, and that's Johnny Depp. I mean, you want to be right or you want to be happy? Pick a lane.
No, you're right. This is really, really fascinating. Like I said, it's so you're essentially you're doing the easy stuff up front. You're taking that risk in the middle, and then your kill shot comes at the end because people will just remember the last thing that they see more than anything else, right? It's almost like UFC fights and how they're judged, right?
I was thinking the exact same
they're
thing.
3 rounds, and a lot of times a fighter could be winning the first 2 rounds, but get destroyed the 3rd round. In the scorecard, the judges will favor the guy who just won that 3rd round because it was at the end, and it's what people will remember when that buzzer goes off, right? So there is a lot of translation there, and this is awesome, man. I really, really am soaking this up. Tommy, do you have any kind of questions for Dan on format or anything in regards to this?
No.
So a lot of lawyers make the mistake of trying to prove that a witness lied, right? The cop lied, the victim lied, they lied. I don't ever want to start off in voir dire, jury selection, or opening statement and argue that a witness lied. They don't have to be a liar for me to prevail. They have to be mistaken or wrong, but there's a difference between intentionally telling a lie, which is knowingly stating a false fact, versus making a mistake or being wrong. The analogy I always use is an air traffic controller. If an air traffic controller is giving the wrong information to a pilot, if he's lying, the plane's going to crash. If he made a mistake or was just wrong, guess what? The plane's going to crash. I don't care if it's a lie or a mistake or simply being wrong. It's still fatal. So why are you setting the bar so high that you got to jump over it? No, I don't have to show that he lied. I don't have to show anything technically, but I shouldn't even suggest that I'm going to show that he lied. Now, sometimes in the rare case, you got a situation where you can absolutely show, based upon a prior sworn statement or a video or whatever, that a person's lying. Well, if it gets you all plumping hard to go there, well, then go there and say, oh, they lied. But in almost all other situations, which are the vast majority, don't suggest, or intimate that you have to show that a witness lied. No, they were just wrong.
So I know this is kind of more for legal folk, but can you give us the meaning of voir dire?
Voir dire, I think it's really a Texas saying. It's a French. I think in French it means to speak the truth, but in Texas we call jury selection voir dire, right? I don't know why we do, but we do. And fun fact for those at home who probably know this anyway, it is not jury selection, right? The lawyers do not say, I want you, I want you, I want you. We don't choose. In no jurisdiction are jurors chosen. It's a process of survival, not selection. We eliminate you, and you, and the first 12 people that aren't eliminated are on the jury. It's jury survival, not selection.
So,
and inevitably what happens, and getting off topic a little bit from cross-examination, but inevitably what happens, and there are now AI programs that you can use for jury selection and mock trials and focus groups. It's crazy stuff. But in the real world, most of the time, what generally happens is the 12 or 14 with alternates, people that say the least and you know the least about, those are the ones that end up on your jury, because the ones that you know the most about, that you dislike the most, you're killing those. So it's a bunch of unknowns. Usually, you know, because each side has X amount of peremptories and whatnot. A peremptory challenge means, in a felony case in Texas, each side has 10 peremptory challenges, meaning you can get rid of those jurors for any reason at all. They're free strikes, right? You cannot eliminate them based upon race and protected classes and all that sort of stuff. But generally speaking, dude, he looked at me wrong. He rolled his eyes. She hates me. I can just tell by the way she walked past me when I was going to the back. Whatever. You can get rid of them for any reason at all. So my point being, long-windedly again, is you end up with people you don't know anything the hell about.
No, that's fascinating. How do you say voir dire? Voir dire.
Theater matters. We talked about this just a few minutes ago, but the you know, you vary your tone, you vary your pitch. Roll the next one. So Rusty, my friend, and certainly one of the greatest living trial lawyers. Rusty, don't want me to tell you his age, so I won't. But he's older than me by 14 years, so I don't want to tell you his age, and I'm 68. But he is so good at varying his tone, and I'm pretty good at it too.
You're good.
And I do the same thing, and I learned it from guys like Rusty. What a judge wants you to do is stand behind that lectern, right, and not move, and just sit there at your desk or stand there behind a lectern and not move. Ask all your questions from a seated position or from a standing position chained to a lectern. You know why they want you to do that? Because it sucks. The jury's not going to follow you. They're not going to pay attention to you. I move as often as I can, right? We are mammals. At the end of the day, if a mammal detects movement, guess what it does? It follows the movement, right? So I move around all the time, not because I'm trying to get my steps in, but because I know a jury will follow me, right? And if I just sit there, or if I just stand there handcuffed to the lectern, I'm not as interesting. I'm not that interesting anyway, but I'm a little more interesting, you know, when I move around.
That's actually makes so much sense, and it's crazy to think through, like, how all these little nuances make such a big difference when you add it all together in the courtroom.
The most unused tool in the courtroom?
I like that.
Pausing. It is so powerful. When all the noise stops, you pay attention, right? You just do. I mean, travel down the highway. Just get in your car. Go anywhere. Turn on the music. Turn on the windshield wiper. Turn on the air conditioner. Turn on as many noise-creating things as you can, and try to think, or try to experience, or try to be present. You fucking can't, right? Stay in that same car. Turn off the air conditioning. Turn off the windshield wipers. Turn off the music. Guess what you're going to find? You're present, and you're paying attention to how you feel and to what's going on and to the traffic. And it's the same with using a pause in the courtroom. It literally focuses you on what's going on, and everything else is just a distraction or a diversion. You can't use it all the time. You got to say shit. But if you pause, sometimes you get people to focus better.
Damn, a pause can be so powerful.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's like that wife or girlfriend. Hey, honey, I'm home. Oh, that pause, it ain't ever good. It is never good, and you are paying attention when you get that pause.
Good in the courtroom, bad in the bedroom.
Right.
How to use the pause effectively, like how does the next word you say after the pause like mean even more because of that long break? Is that something that's sort of a known thing?
Yeah, of course. But it's got to be natural. It's got to be organic, and it's got to flow, right? If you do it more than really once per witness, then it just becomes a gimmick, right? It's like, oh, this fucker thinks he's going to get us to pay attention by pause. What the fuck ever, right? It's got to flow. It's got to be organic. It's got to be. I put my friend David Gerger up there because he is so effective at that. I call him a master pauser. I said that right, a master pauser. But David is very cerebral, educated from Yale, UT Law School, kind of very highbrow, sophisticated. Used to be a little condescending in my view, but now he's much more comfortable in his skin. He's one of my top 2 or 3 guys I'd hire if I was in trouble. He's a brilliant guy, and he is the master of the pause. But it works for David probably even better than it works for me because he is a little holier than thou. He is a little cerebral. So it's that professorial. Is that really your answer? You know, I can't do that, right? I would do, is that really your answer? Really? But David does this. Is that the best you have? You know, and again, it's personality driven. He can do that shit. I cannot.
Got it.
Right?
That reminds me of the comedian Dave Chappelle, right? I think what makes him probably one of the best comedians is his effective pausing.
Yeah.
And that really sets him apart. I mean, not that, you know, I think that's like one of his best attributes. So it's effective in comedy. It's effective, you know, in all realms.
But you look at, you know, I don't know who else, you know, Ron White is at least as funny. I think both those guys are sort of on my Mount Rushmore of comedians, whatever. But he's not a big pause guy.
Exactly.
I mean, he'll do that.
Yeah.
But that's more of a. I think you think he's thinking of what he's going to say as opposed to a pause. I was thinking before you guys got here, you know, if I was ever asked what would you be or what would you want to be if you weren't a criminal defense lawyer, it'd probably be a stand-up comedian because I think the skill sets are very consistent and interchangeable. You have to get people to pay attention. You have to be able to capture large amounts of information. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to pivot and go where the audience takes you, much like where a witness takes you. I think those guys are just geniuses.
For sure.
I have no idea how you can stand up and do an hour-and-a-half set.
Yeah.
I mean, I know how the Stones do it because Jagger's here and Keith Richards is there and Ronnie Wood's, and this one's playing and that one's. But how you just stand there and deliver that shit for an hour and a half is amazing to me.
This is a little bit of a tangent, but I was watching a video last night of a comedian, Jimmy Carr. Are you familiar with Jimmy Carr?
Yeah, he's funny.
He's really good.
He's really good, but then it just amazed me how like profound these comedians, like they're just the ideas, the things they say, they're honestly brilliant people.
But the thing about him is he's so insulting.
Yep.
But you don't get insulted. I mean, he just eviscerates people in the crowd. They're just like, oh, okay.
Well, that's the beauty of humor, and again, I might need to edit like a glaze count on here because I'm about to say like Dan is actually fucking hilarious too. So I could see you being a comic. But yesterday I moderated an AI panel here at Method, and I was prepping for it, and I used AI to prep, and I had AI. Tell me, I'm like, hey, this is AI panel. These are the people here. Can you help me with a joke so that I can get like a little chuckle from the audience? And, it's safe to say that, they keep saying AI is taking all these jobs. It's definitely not taking comics jobs anytime soon because that shit is not funny.
Well, to me, as a criminal defense lawyer, you have to be able to, at least I do, you have to inject some humor into it. I believe, rightly or wrongly, that a laughing and a smiling jury is an acquitting jury. and an angry and a silent jury is a convicting jury. I think there's a lot of truth there. But just like anything else, like the pause, like the this or that, you can overuse it. But I've been known to say some really outrageous, borderline contemptuous shit in a trial just to break up the rhythm. And what I'm trying to say when I do say something punchy or funny is, look, we're all human here. This is a hard racket. We have to take our humor where we can find it. There's nothing wrong with that. But more important than any of that, we're all human. My client's a human. Come on, let's ease up on the seriousness and the pomp and the circumstances here. Because when you're in federal court and they bang that gavel, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The United States District Court for the Southern District of Texas is in session. God save the United States. You know, and everybody's, holy shit, I'm going to prison now. You know?
I didn't even do shit, and I feel like I'm about to get locked up just hearing you say
you
that.
hear that, you're just like, God damn. And you think they do that not knowing the effect? The fuck, they don't know the effect. They love that effect. And I always send my clients in federal court particularly to go in and watch another trial because they think, oh, I got this. I watch, you know, Perry Mason, or I watch Suits. Or it's like, no, dude, you don't understand the pomp and the circumstances of a federal court and how it's not in your favor. None of that shit is built to, and again, like we referenced a while back, when it's the United States of America versus you, it doesn't feel like a fair fight. It's not.
To add a little bit, if you have one in mind, can you give like one of the more memorable times where you got the lighten the mood in the crowd,
Sure.
in the courtroom?
So in the Enron case, and we had a very patrician federal judge. His name is Ewing T. Werline Jr. And again, Tommy, you call Central Casting and ask them to send you a federal judge. They send you Ewing T. Werline Jr. He's about 6'4" at 80 years old. He has this beautiful mane of white hair. You know, he just has all this presence, and he talks like this. All right, Mr. Cogdell, you have anything to say? I mean, it's like, holy shit. It's kind of like a white Morgan Freeman voice, right? It's where to get your attention. And we were talking about discovery, right? And we got into a discussion about whether or not the government had given us all the discovery. And some of this was this particular thing was not in the presence of the jury, but this lawyer, Judge, we got 3 megabytes, we got 2 terabytes, and this is 20 years ago. I didn't know terabyte from a partridge in a pear tree. And he said, Mr. Cogdell, how big is your discovery? And I stood up. I said, Judge, I don't know all this terabyte and megabyte stuff, but mine's about this big. And the entire place just erupted, because the obvious phallic reference, But the jury wasn't there, and he's like, all right. And if I were on the bench, I'd say, that's not what I've heard, but carry on. But it lightened the mood, and it got us to where we wanted to be, because we were talking about needing a short recess to come back the following day, and it just and he was kind of like, okay, fine, I'll give him the afternoon off or whatever it was.
Well, then on the other side of the coin, has there been a time where you've try to deliver a joke and it's like crickets?
Sure. Yeah, and when
you pivot hard,
when you fall flat and you're waiting for that, you pause that delivery, waiting for the laugh, and it doesn't happen, you're fucked. It's happened a couple of times.
Not guilty immediately. I mean, guilty immediately.
Yeah, but it's like it's like that moment in My Cousin Vinny where the stand-in lawyer's like, I could get better.
I know.
It's one of those moments you're like, oh, shit. I thought you said he was good.
The Curb Your Enthusiasm song starts.
Just like camera pans out.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so funny. Okay, so I got the next slide here. Runaway witness.
Yeah, so it's not uncommon at all in my racket to particularly with law enforcement. You know, they just want to run away from you. They want to give you information that's not called for in your question. And so you have to control that witness, right? You have to rein them in. So you generally start off on cross-examination by saying, you know, Special Agent Smith, let's make a deal. I will ask you simple questions that can be answered with a yes or no or with a short answer, and you will give me an answer that's responsive to my question. Is that fair? And what are they going to say? No. And they say, sure, well, if I can. But once they start running, right, once you ask them what time it was and they start talking about your client's Ferrari, Special Agent, do you remember the first question I asked you about me asking you simple, direct questions and you give me simple, direct? Yeah. So who told you to just add in information that you wanted to that wasn't called for my question? Did Lawyer Smith with the government, he didn't tell you that, did he? No. Well, did Lawyer Jane? She didn't tell you that. So to be clear, when you start adding this information in that's not called for by my question, that's your idea. That's on you. This is what you want to do, right? Well, I wouldn't put it that way. Well, how would you put it? Well, I'm trying to be responsive to my question. Well, what was the question that I asked you? Well, I don't remember. So if you don't remember the question that I asked you, would you do us all the favor of simply saying, Mr. Cogdell, can you repeat your question? Is that fair? Okay, fine. It takes a few of those to get coming and going, but they will run. They are literally trained at Quantico, where the FBI Academy is, to answer questions that ain't asked for, to run over you. They literally go to witness school, and this is a little overstatement, but on how to lie, cheat, and steal, right? And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but they're taught how not to answer questions the same way we are taught on how to ask questions. And they're a professional witness. They will kill you, right? And that's the one thing about cross-examination. If you do it right, your client could be acquitted. If you do it wrong, and one question, one bad answer can earn your client 20, 30 years in prison. So it's a very high wire you're on cross.
Wow. That's actually crazy.
It's intense.
Man, this is so good. I mean, we can keep going now, I say.
So I see this all the time. It is when they testify for the state, they're Einstein. They know every answer to every single question, right? There's never a hesitation, complete command of their memory on the facts. I get them on cross, and it's Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing, right? Over and over, they don't know. They can't remember. They're not sure. And it happens and it's just so stupid when it happens, but you've got to let it happen, right? You've got to let them say, I don't know, I can't remember, I'm unsure, and then just go to the next slide. What you'll do, or at least what I do, why is it easier to answer the government's questions than it is to answer my question? Has anyone suggested you to say, I can't remember, I don't know, if you simply don't want to answer the question? What can we do to help you with your memory? There's no right answer to that, right? Whatever they say is going to bite them in the ass. I love this one. I'll tell you a side story on this. Is there a medical or psychological basis, like medication, that affects your memory, right? I had a physician who was cooperating with the government on a case a few years back, and he said, well, I'm taking Seroquel or whatever it was. And I said, well, doctor, are you suggesting that Seroquel can impact your memory or impede your ability to recall? Well, I'm not sure. Well, you're a physician, right? Do you have a PDR app in your phone? Well, I do. Well, why don't you take it out and read it, right? And the government could object, but they're not going to, right? Because A, they look like an asshole, and B, they're hoping that it doesn't impact their memory, or if it does, whatever. And so he starts reading it, that premature ejaculation, inability to maintain very quickly into his side effect discourse that he's reading off the PDR. At that point, it was over. I mean, everybody in that courtroom, the only thing they could remember about his testimony was that he prematurely ejaculates and he can't maintain a hard-on. I mean, it just, whatever credibility he might have had just went, I'm sorry to say, limp.
War story number 1.
Okay, so that was the Kahanic trial, the Enron trial, where I got to throw my arm out of socket, pat myself on the back. I got the only acquittal in any Enron-related trial, whatever. But in Sheila's case, there was one phone call that was the alpha and the omega, right, of the conspiracy. And it was on this phone call that the conspiracy sort of began and gained legs. And there was a huge debate as to who said what and what exactly was said on this supposed conspiratorial phone call. And the trial was in like 2002. This phone call was supposedly like 1996, right? So 6 years before. So this woman comes up and she is an ear witness, right? But she recalls everything, right? Well, Mr. Skilling got on first and Mr. Lay got on second and Jeff's Andy Fastow got on third and Miss Kahanic and Mr. McMahon and blah, blah, blah. And just, it's like, what? You remember who got on the phone call? You remember exactly what was said by whom? You remember the detail? This is 6 years. I mean, total recall, right? Just, it's complete and utter bullshit, right? There's no way you can remember that stuff. So I'm thinking, well, first off, when I heard her direct, I'm like, we are done. She has absolutely killed us. And we were doing really well up to that point. I'm like, okay, we're cooked here. So you got to take risk. You know. So 6 years later, I'm like, all right, well, you have an incredible recall, Miss Smith, right? Just amazing. I do. Okay. Well, what day of the week was it? I don't know. Wait a minute. You remembered it was Lay and Skilling and Fast. Well, you don't remember what day it was? I do not. Well, how old were your children? You know, she got to walk it back. You had to think about how old your children were, but you knew the order of the time that the people got on the call? Yeah, took me a minute. Okay. What did you get for Christmas that year? Well, that's not a fair question. No, ma'am, it's a very fair question because you remember with identical detail who said what, when, where. Who won the Super Bowl that year? Are you a football fan? Yes. Who won the Super Bowl? I don't know. What was the most memorable thing that happened to you that year? The most memorable thing happened that year. It surely wasn't this phone call. Tell us 3 other memorable things. Long pause.
Damn. Savage.
Okay, so we've seen this.
Yeah.
But probably ought to play it now anyway.
Can I play this?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I want to play it.
So before you play it, so this is a video taken by a woman who would be shot by the fella pointing this gun at her. So play it.
You really want this on video?
I'm pulling. I'm mad enough and he's pulling.
Your neighbors are gonna see you pointing a gun at me.
I'm ready to go. Grab your phone.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
All right, goodbye, Reese. Nice to know you. You go meet Jesus.
Oh, shit.
Okay, so the point of this in my lecture to the advanced course at the State Bar yesterday was, you know, how do you cross-examine the uncross-examinable, right? It's an audio. You can't cross-examine the audio and the video. It's coming in. So how the hell do you deal with that, right? Well, there's a few ways to deal with it. The first is you have to prepare the jury in jury selection and an opening statement. You know, this is the worst piece of evidence you will ever hear or ever see in your life. It's awful. And again, some lawyers were suggesting, well, she just stood there when he was pointing the gun at her. She could have run away. Maybe no, that's not really a great defense that she could have run away when he's pointing a shotgun. Well, maybe he didn't intend to kill her. He just wanted to scare her and it accidentally. No. So my point is, apropos, Aaron, to what I was saying earlier, you got to admit it's awful. Right? You can't run away from that. It stinks up not only the witness stand, the whole damn courtroom smelled like a urinal, right? Mm-hmm. An unflushed commode. That shit was everywhere. It was awful. So what you have to do is tell them, you're going to walk into a bathroom where the urinals are overflowing and the commodes are overflowing with human shit. It's going to smell awful. It's going to be terrible. And I want to tell you that up front. I'm not going to mislead you saying they weren't overflowing that much or the refuse wasn't that bad. It was awful. But you're not here to judge, the plumbing. You're here to judge the plumber and what happened to the plumber that day and days before it, right? So let's not talk about the feces. Let's focus on the plumber, meaning Carrie, right? And I thought that was kind of trite, but kind of effective at the same time. So what the focus became, first off, you have to normalize it. You've got to play. The first time you see that, you're just like, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. The second time you see it, it's equally offensive, but a little more understandable because you know what's going to happen. The third time or the fourth time or the fifth time, you think, well, she does kind of sit there and she could have run away and she does kind of taunt him, but you don't point out any of that shit, right? You just make them play it 2 or 3 times. And detective, I'm not sure, it's horrible. I hate to do this to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. I apologize in advance, but I want them to understand the nuance of it. Could you play it again? And you don't ask the officer, did you see her not run anywhere? You just let the jury figure that stuff out, right? And then at the third of it is, you just deal with it. Meaning, in this case, next slide, Aaron, you point out what happened before that, right? And after that, because before that, she secretly tape recorded him where she's, they were swingers, whatever, and she was taunting him, basically saying, of course I was screwing that other guy better. He's better hung than you. Nobody wants to fuck you. You're a fat piece of shit. You don't provide for me anymore. You were broke. When we were first married, you were rich. I mean, just every single horrible thing you can say about a man. And as I argued to our 12 women on the jury, 12 women, I said, listen, all of y'all know this. Every single one of you know this, regardless of married, single, orientation, whatever. If you really want to upset a man, if you really want to get him angry, if you really want to get him in a passion, and a bad one, talk about his inability to perform sexually and talk about his inability to provide financially. That will upset any man on the planet, including the one that's talking to you right now. You know that, and I know that. So let's view this for what it is. It's a horrible tragedy. That should have never happened, but it is also, under the law, a sudden passion arising from an adequate cause. Did she deserve to die? Of course not. But was this a cold-blooded murder that didn't involve sudden passion from arising an adequate cause? Of course not. Does he deserve to get probation? No. The law doesn't even allow that. But he deserves to be, this case, all I'm asking you to do is follow the law. And the law is, if you believe by even a preponderance of the evidence that it was sudden passion arising from an adequate cause, the punishment range is not 5 to 99 or life, it's 2 to 20. And that's where this case belongs, is right there in the middle of 2 to 20. Is it the best sudden passion case ever? 2? No. Is it the worst sudden passion case ever at 20, where there was they chopped up the body and fed it to alligators? No, it's neither one of those things. It's right in the middle. You know it, and I know it. Is 10 years enough? I don't know. Is 50 years enough? I don't know. But it's in the middle of the range that the law requires. It's a 10-year sentence. And I walked away and I shut the fuck up and they gave him 10 years.
That's crazy because, I mean, I would have just presumed life after watching that video. It's just that bad.
And we explained this on another one, but it was actually worse than the video because, as I mentioned on a prior episode, he's the only client that's ever walked into my office, and I came to the conclusion that day, dude, he's going to prison. It might be for 2 years, it might be for life, but he's going. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is going. So you do what any lawyer would do and prepare your client for the worst. Tell him to sell your shit, you're going to prison. So he did, and he was living in a hotel, and his son came and visited him because they knew we were going to plead guilty and he was going to go to prison. We didn't know for how long. And the son, and all this is on the videotape, or his statements that came into evidence, so I'm not violating a privilege that some suggested I'm violating, whatever. And his son, you know, they were drinking. I love you, Dad. I love you, son. Kerry expected his son to walk out of the room. Instead, his son blew his head off right there, and the police showed up, and Kerry said, you know, me and my wife got into a little disagreement in the driveway. Yeah, a little disagreement. I've hired this lawyer named Dan Cogdell. We're going to go for sudden passion. You know, tell him the whole defense and then the coup de grace. And the jury heard all of this on the body cam. All of this. Why couldn't it have been my other son? This was my good son. I mean, most jury, my whole job description was just keeping them as rational as I possibly could. And the only way you can do that is to, as we say in the criminal defense word, hug the turd. You got to own the turd, dude. It's yours. You can't polish it. You can't bronze it. You just got to hug it.
So knowing when not to cross.
Yeah.
We'll close with this.
Look, my rule is if the witness doesn't hurt you, shut up. Why do I want to cross-examine a witness that doesn't hurt me? Some witnesses, there's some expert witnesses that will probably hurt you more on cross-examination than on direct examination because they're primed to do so. They're laying in the cut, and anything you ask them, they'll cut you. The hand grenade witness, as I call them, they're going to blow up. You just don't know on who. So I don't want to be the one to pull the trigger on them. The usual case, Aaron, is they're highly emotional, and they're upset at the state for making them testify. They're upset at you for having to be there. They're going to go off, and sometimes it's like, "Thank you, ma'am. Nice shoes." You know, just walk away. And the business records custodian, what are you going to get out of that? And then the widow of a parent of a victim. Yeah, I've seen lawyer after lawyer try to get some sympathy or understanding or some concession from the widow or a parent of a victim. They're never going to say anything nice. They're never going to say their daughter was promiscuous, or their husband was an asshole, or their husband. They're never going to say any of that. So what I usually say is, ma'am, I can't imagine what you're going through. I apologize. I apologize on my behalf for your experience and having to even come here. I am so sorry. I wish you the best day you can possibly have, or whatever, and get the fuck out.
Wow. Yeah, I mean this is a series that we're going to start implementing more on Dan's show. Is really kind of getting more into the weeds, and this episode was kind of in cross-examination, but there's so many different aspects in the courtroom and the practice of law in general that obviously Dan has the reps and experience in, that he can kind of educate and share these stories with us because they're absolutely fascinating, and there's a lot to learn. And even I was tearing up and laughing earlier how much how funny it was kind of discussing pauses and maybe jokes that didn't land. But I think we're at time.
Are we done with the slides?
Done with the slides?
Yeah.
Jennifer Fitzgerald's ex-boyfriend abandoned a car in the employee parking lot of O'Hara Airport where it was accumulating over 678 parking tickets. Fitzgerald claimed she couldn't access the lot to remove the car. Even after the state of Illinois revoked the car license plates, the city continued to issue tickets. Fitzgerald sued the city to clear the fines and penalties, arguing she shouldn't be responsible for tickets on a car she couldn't be able to reach. The case was settled out at court for $4,500. This situation highlights issues with abandoned vehicles and the complications of handling fines when access to car is restricted. But what a way to get at your ex.
I mean, you got to give him credit. That's pretty clever. You know, and there is such a thin line between love and hate, you know, and the anger and the wrath that people want to put their exes through is never ending in terms of its creativity and it's sometimes it's humor, sometimes it's tragedy, but you know,
thinking outside the box
because of his ex box.